Welcome to episode 68 of Magic and the Law of Attraction, using tarot cards and oracle cards together. You got an oracle deck in my tarot cards. Well, you got tarot cards in my oracle deck. If you've been around the block a few times, you might remember that old Reese's commercial where two people, one with peanut butter and one with chocolate, bump into one another and a culinary meet cute is born. Although most people think of using their oracle and tarot cards separately, just like a delicious peanut butter cup, when we use our decks together, we can find that they are two great tastes that taste great together. So, how can we bring these two divination tools together? Well, in this episode, I will tell you the difference between Oracle and Tarot decks, give you lots of do's and a few don'ts, and share some of my favorite Tarot Oracle deck combos that I work with in my practice. But before we dive in, let me tell you about the Magical Mystery Marketplace. That's right, there's a new fun event coming your way every Sunday. It's called the Magical Mystery Marketplace, and it's a little bit of a fun hangout, a little bit magical education, and a whole lot of witchy QVC. Each week, I pick a special topic and then feature some of the amazing products we have at the Parlor of Wonders and show you how to use them in your magical practice. Every week, it's a surprise as to what the spotlight items are going to be. And for everyone watching, there's a flash sale on the featured products. You'll not only have fun, you will save money too. And if you purchase any of the spotlighted items during the live stream, you are eligible for the giveaway that we have at the end. We will be giving away one of the spotlighted items to one lucky person each and every week. And if you're a member of the coven, you get an additional discount and you get an additional entry into that giveaway. If you want to find out how to be a member of my coven, you can just go to coven.vip. We'll be talking a little bit about that later. The Magical Mystery Marketplace takes place every Sunday, except for the first Sunday of the month at 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And you can watch it over YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Just subscribe to Madame Pamita on your favorite social account and click the notifications bell so you get notified when we go live. See you at the Magical Mystery Marketplace. Well, what is the difference? Let's start talking about tarot and oracle decks. Well, before we even begin, we really need to see the difference between tarot and oracle decks. So there is a divination art called cartomancy. Cartomancy means divination with cards. So every kind of card reading that you can do falls under the umbrella of cartomancy. That means tarot decks, of course. It can also mean oracle decks. It can also mean playing cards, Lenormand decks, Kipper cards. There's lots of different card systems, but we're going to be focusing on tarot decks and oracle decks. We could consider for our purposes Lenormand decks and Kipper cards as being oracle decks. But tarot decks are different than these other systems. Tarot decks are very systematic. They generally have 78 cards. Some decks have a couple more. That's sometimes happens, but in general, you're going to see most tarot decks have 78 cards. They have a particular breakdown. There's 56 minor arcana cards, which have four suits, just like playing cards, and they go ace through 10. And then they have four sets of four court cards. So instead of Jack, Queen, and King, like we have in playing cards, it's Page, Knight, Queen, King, or some equivalent like that. There's also another part to the tarot deck, and that is called the major arcana. And these are 22 cards numbered 0 through 21. So this is a very structured system. Tarot is a very structured system. Now, also how you can identify a tarot deck is on most tarot decks, there are no words on the cards other than the name of the card. And that means for the majors, the ones that go 0 through 21, like the Sun card, the Star card, the Lovers, and so on, you'll see the name there. The aces will often have Ace of Wands, Ace of Cups, and so on. And the court cards will have Page of Cups, Knight of Pentacles, and so on. So those are the cards that have the words on the bottom. The 2 through 10 do not have any words generally. Some decks are different and they do, but for the most part, this is the typical way that they are created. Now, oracle decks are very loose comparatively. Oracle decks can have any number of cards and are generally not sorted in any way. They're not sorted into suits. There's not, all cards are basically equal in an oracle deck. It's just 36 cards or 48 cards, and they're is no little groupings that we have as we do in tarot. Often oracle cards will have helpful guide words or even phrases that will guide you as to the meaning of the card. Oracle cards are much looser in structure, and the structure of an oracle deck is free for the creator of that oracle deck to decide. They might have a structure to it, maybe, but usually those cards are all just equal. There's no groupings and there's none of that. And the structures sort of just, here's your deck, and they're all equal cards. So how can you tell the difference between an oracle deck and a tarot deck? Well, the first place to look, of course, is the packaging. Packaging of a tarot deck will say tarot cards on it, and the packaging of an oracle deck will say oracle deck on it. Now, sometimes we see Lenormand cards. They don't say oracle or tarot, but they're their own special kinds of cards. Kipper cards are the same way. But any card that really doesn't have 78 cards or doesn't have that structure, you can generally assume that it is an oracle deck. If you want to know if your card is a tarot deck, you want to look for those suits and you want to make sure that there's 78 cards, and that will be your clue as well. So now we know the difference between oracle decks and tarot decks. Well, let's talk about those in terms of energies as well. Oracle decks can really go in any direction. Again, that very loose energy. Tarot decks have a structured meaning, and most tarot decks are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is the most popular deck you see out there. It's the one that was invented over 110 years ago. That deck that was designed 110 years ago is probably the one that's most popular, and most decks are based on that. So there's a lot more structure when looking at a tarot deck and creating a tarot deck or working with one. And oracle decks can be anything. Oracle decks can be really anything. We see all kinds of tarot decks. I mean, or oracle decks when we look at those decks. Now, why do we want to use them together? Well, as I mentioned before, each oracle deck has a different flavor. Like, you can really get into the flavors of the deck. I mean, some decks are very encouraging, some are super spiritual, some are very thematic, some are straight to the point and kind of gruff and rough. So oracle decks, because of that freedom, can have lots of different flavors, and you might want to bring that flavor into your reading. Now, there might be themes and elements that you want to bring in. Maybe you're doing a reading, but the reading is about a pet. And so you might want to bring a pet-centric oracle deck in to help get some additional information in that reading. Maybe you want to bring spirit guides in, or you want to see if there's an ascended master or a goddess or a god or something like that that wants to connect with the person. So you can bring an oracle deck like that in. You might want to bring in seasonal decks or thematic decks. So there are themes and elements that you may want to bring into your tarot reading, and bringing that oracle deck in can add that. Now, I also find that working with oracle decks and tarot decks together, they help each other to clarify. So if you're stuck with a really mystifying tarot reading, oracle cards can bring new information, really fresh information, because oftentimes oracle cards have concepts that may not be reflected in the tarot. Tarot can bring depth to a light and fluffy oracle card reading. So sometimes some oracle decks tend to be very sort of positive and very light, and we might want to bring some depth to it or see something that is like a challenge to be overcome. And so a tarot card can bring that depth and that truth to a light and fluffy oracle card. Likewise, there are decks that we might consider oracle card decks that are straight shooting, and so they can really give us some clarity on those tarot readings that we're not having that clarity on. Now, if you're bored of one deck, adding another can bring new insights and connection. For example, I've been using tarot for decades, and sometimes the cards, you get used to your meanings for the cards and what they can possibly reflect in a reading and so on. And sometimes I bring in an oracle deck just to give some kind of stir it up, or to bring some excitement or some new ideas, especially when we're looking at those cards in conjunction. and seeing the effect of, let's say, the oracle card on the tarot card or vice versa. It can add some freshness to our understanding of the cards that we're very familiar with or very used to working with. Bringing both those decks together can also help confirm or dispute what you are intuiting. So, for example, if you pull a tarot card and you're doing a reading for yourself, and you think this card, let's say, for example, what could I use for an example? Um, let's say you have the magician card come up, and the magician card has a very wide range of meaning. And so let's say you're doing a reading and you're thinking, well, the magician card means you need to strike out on your own, and you pull an oracle card and you see that the oracle card confirms that. It says the word independence on it. And you're like, oh, yes, I was right on the money with my interpretation of the magician card. Likewise, if it disputes what you're saying, then well, maybe I need to look in a different direction in that card, So it can be a way of confirming or disputing what you're intuiting in the tarot and vice versa. So let's talk about how you can use them together. Well, there's lots of methods for using these cards together. First method would be to start with your deck, the deck that you're most comfortable, the most comfortable style of deck, and then do a typical reading that you would normally do with that deck. So if you're very comfortable with oracle cards, do your oracle card reading, and then pull a few cards from your tarot deck to add some information. Or other way around, if you're really super comfortable with tarot and you were doing your reading, you can add some cards from the oracle deck and get some new information. Method 2 would be to choose an oracle card at the start of the tarot reading to set the tone. You could choose your oracle card at the beginning of the reading. Oh, this reading is about charity. Let's say charity was the card you pulled up. So then that gives a tone or direction for your tarot cards that follow. Likewise, you could, in addition or instead, choose an oracle card at the end of the session to give a sum up of the reading. Oh, I pulled this card of rest and relaxation, this oracle card of rest and relaxation, to remind you that although you're doing all of these things that we talked about in the tarot reading, rest and relaxation needs to be a big part of it. All right. Third method, if you have a tarot and an oracle deck that are the same size, you can shuffle them together as one big deck and just read them like you would read your normal tarot card or your normal oracle card reading. Now, this is not my favorite method because it kind of, it's a little, let's say, open-ended because you don't get to choose which deck you're working with. But some people love this method of blending the cards together. The key thing, of course, is that you have to have a deck that is the same size. Not an easy thing to do. There are some, not many, decks that are tarot and oracle cards that are the same size that come together. But for the most part, you're going to have to just sort of work around that and find two decks that come together and they're the same size. Now, method 4 is to create a spread or a layout that incorporates both the tarot and oracle cards. For example, you could pull an oracle card for the general energy of the situation and then choose a tarot card for the past, present, and future. So there's one card that you're putting maybe the oracle card at the top and then choosing the card for past, present, future, and all of that becomes part of your reading. The fifth method is to do a simple tarot layout and then lay oracle cards on top of each of the tarot cards. And then you read each of those pairs in the position. So, for example, if you had a past, present, future reading, and in the past you had a tarot card, you pulled an oracle card, you could look at those two together to get the energy of the past and add that extra element in there to sort of give some connection between those two cards and find what connects them. So it's a very intriguing thing to do it in that way. So what are some of the do's and don'ts for working with tarot and oracle cards together? Well, the first do, there's lots of do's. So feel free to break out of whatever you have been taught. So there are no rules as there are many rules in working with tarot, there are very few or really no rules other than these do's and don'ts to break to just do it as you feel. It's like to play intuitively, play around with the cards, try different things, work with cards in ways that you feel inspired to do, maybe in the moment, or maybe you want to try different things and experiment with them. So I think about that idea of like, I would have, when I was doing readings live and in person, I would often have an oracle deck sort of off to the side. I still do, even for my online readings. And sometimes I feel like inspired, like, oh, we need to look at this deck to get like a richer meaning or understanding of the question that you're asking. And so sometimes I'll bring them in, sometimes I won't bring them in, but they're there if I want them to be there. So do feel free to break out of what you've been taught and bring them in when you feel like bringing them in. The next do is to do experiment with different decks, different combinations of decks, and different methods of combining. We talked about those different methods. Try them out, like experiment a little bit, because some decks will work and play well together. Others, you won't feel it. So do readings for yourself or for your friends or family and try those out and try different combinations or try different decks together and see which ones seem to kind of gel for you. Do trust your intuition in choosing the decks to combine. So there's no rules like this deck goes with this deck. Try different things and let your intuition guide you. If you feel like, gosh, I really want to bring in this shamanic wisdom deck with my regular tarot deck, I'm just feeling it right now. Trust that intuitive hit and try different things. So lots of do's about being free, experimenting, and finding what works for you. Now let's talk about the don'ts. This is the number one don't, and it goes really with any card reading, actually, not just these kinds of card readings. Don't add cards just to get the answer you want to hear. That is not what this is about. This is not like, oh my gosh, I got the devil card, the death card, and the three of swords when I asked about my relationship. So now I'm going to bring in some oracle cards to make it look better. Right? That's not what this is about. So don't add cards just because you didn't like the answer that you got with the first deck that you laid out. Second don't, and the last don't really, is to don't overwhelm yourself with too many cards on the table. This is not about spreading out every tarot card and spreading about every oracle card. It's a lot. I would even say to you, where I say, have a layout, a tarot layout, and then put oracle cards with those cards. That would be for a 3-card reading, maybe a 5-card reading, but no more than that. You don't need to overwhelm yourself and put dozens of cards out on the table. It will just create confusion. So be sparing with it. Pull one oracle card or a few oracle cards. Don't pull the whole oracle deck. All right, now in a minute, I'm going to tell you about my favorite oracle deck and tarot deck combinations. But before I do that, do you want to be part of my inner circle? Are you a basic witch or a supreme witch? A good witch or a wicked witch? Well, whatever kind of magic maker you are, I want to make magic with you. If you're ready to level up your magical practice, prioritize your spirituality, and have fun making magic with me, then you must be a part of my coven. Join the coven and get access to exclusive perks that you can get nowhere else. We have things like monthly coven exclusive Q&As at the Spirit Speakeasy. We've got monthly tarot card pulls. You get a spot for free in my monthly group spell service. You get a free on-demand video workshop each month. There are levels where you get Patreon-only polls to pick new products. You get upgraded discounts at the Magical Mystery Marketplace. We have exclusive flash sale coupons. I mean, the list goes on and on. I really made the coven so that it was juicy, that you really got your money's worth and more. Like I'm this month, I'm giving away some magical hurricane water, and that is a free gift that I'm giving to coven members. So these are the examples of the things that you get. I want you to feel like the coven is not only a place that we can connect, we can do more magic together, we can have fun together, but you also get really juicy, fun things that you can participate in. So look at all the connections that we can have and the magic that we can make. Join the coven and get started making magic fun again. Simply go to coven.vip to see all the levels and all the perks that you can take advantage of throughout each and every month. Just go to patreon.com/Madame Pamita, or the easy one is coven.vip. They both take you to the same place, and sign up today. So now that I've convinced you that bringing Oracle and Tarot together can bring in more insight and add some new life to your readings, how do you choose what decks to bring together? Well, there's lots of ways. First, you could be matchy matchy. You can bring two like decks together. Like you might have a cat tarot deck and a cat oracle deck, and you can work with both of those. You might have an angel tarot and an angel oracle, and you can bring those together. So that's what I call the matchy matchy method. Now, you could also do the opposite subtract method, bringing decks that are very different together. So, an example of that, you might take a cute tarot deck like the Kawaii Tarot, and you might mix it with a spicy tell it like it is oracle, like the iconic Roast Oracle. So, opposites attract is another method of bringing these together. You could also pick pairs by filling in the gaps. Maybe you love one deck, but you feel like it's missing something. And so you can choose a different deck that brings that energy in. So, for example, I think about the Rider Waite Smith, probably my number one go to deck. I love working with that deck, but it doesn't really have a lot of pagan energy or primal energy or animist energy. And so I might bring in an oracle deck that brings that energy in. Another method for choosing your two decks to bring together, just what I call the feeling it method. Yeah, just two decks that you're feeling. Oh, I'd like to try this one with that one. Let's see what they feel like. I just feel, intuit that these would be good together. And that's another method for choosing the decks. So now I'm going to share with you some of my favorite combos. Well, one of my favorite combos, really one of my favorite combos, is the Wiser Tarot, which is my number one Rider Waite Smith deck that I love working with. And my Oracle deck that I love working with, the Vintage Wisdom Oracle, has these beautiful Victorian images on it, photographs that have been kind of made into collage. It's a really beautiful deck. And it brings these very wonderful keywords that just really blossom for me when I sit down with the tarot with that deck. They just seem to go together so, so well. And I love working with them. Another combination that I love working with is the Silver Acorn Tarot, which has, this is the one that I wrote the book for that was designed by Stephanie Buscema. And then I bring the Magical Botanical Oracle in that has more plant and lots of plant energy. Silver Acorn Tarot has lots of plant energy, and I bring those two together, and it's those two just like really feed off of one another and do really well. A third combo that I love working with is the Flower of the Magical Fern Ukrainian Tarot and the Slavic Oracle. So Flower of the Magical Fern, Ukrainian Tarot has Ukrainian imagery on it. Slavic Oracle has Slavic imagery on it. And those two work really, really well together. So we have a wonderful curated assortment of tarot and oracle decks at the Parlor of Wonders. And if you'd like to check them out, you can find all these combinations that I've talked about, as well as some other amazing decks. And all you have to do is go to parlorofwonders.com and go to shop and then look at the tarot and oracle decks. Well, that about does it for this episode of Magic and the Law of Attraction. If you would like to get even more info about folk magic, then check out the Learn page, folk magic, tarot, all of the things. Check out the Learn page over at the Parlor of Wonders, where you will find a ton of free resources and the way to join me live over Zoom for the Magic Q&A Tea Party every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Just go to parlorofwonders.com and click on the Learn tab to see all the goodies there. Thank you to all the Spell Squad members out there who have subscribed to and shared this podcast with your friends. Thank you to the fabulous folks who have left reviews on iTunes, and those reviews are very, very helpful. I really appreciate them. Thank you to Gilles Navarre for production and engineering, and thank you to you for joining me, whether you're here with me live or listening in on the podcast. I'm looking forward to our next episode. Until next time, this is Madame Pamita saying, keep making your life the most magical adventure ever.